If you're just starting out in your career, then I'm going to be telling you about 3 uncommon things that are going to make a big difference to your career as an engineer. And I'm going to tell you about these 3 things from the biggest mistakes I made in my career, as well as tell you a couple of true stories about how they affect the engineers that I've spoken with in the past. So at the end of the video, I'll give you also 3 exercises that you could apply to learn more. What I'm going to talk about today are skills that we don't get taught in schools or universities enough. And unfortunately, we don't get taught them growing up as well, the majority of us anyway. But they are crucial skills in my opinion, and they are skills that tend to affect our careers in massive and many different ways. These are the things I wish I knew, or I can say I wish I listened to those advising me on earlier in my career. They will reflect on your decision making, they could reflect on the level of opportunities you get, and they could also reflect on what job satisfaction levels you have and how you perceive your role, how you pursue opportunities, how you think of your career, and many more. The thing is, while technical skills and building your experiences as an engineer are very important and probably the most important things, those other 3 areas are not given as much attention or care when starting out as an engineer. Of course, you have to build your experiences, you have to look for new ways to improve, you have to grow and develop your skill set, you have to work on your reputation and personal brand, and that's how you maximize the opportunities that you get. But without those 3 other skills, I don't think having the technical skills and good experience will give you their maximum potential, and this is why these 3 are very crucial. So let's get into the details. So the first aspect I want to talk about, and a lot of people don't talk about this enough, but it makes a huge difference, and it's something that you might have thought of before, or maybe think that is trivial, but I can tell you that it has profound impact on your career and on your future and on your present level of work and opportunities as well. And that first thing is personal financial education. Now, a lot of us get into work and just take it for granted, thinking there is no tomorrow. Sometimes people take their income for granted, and I can tell you that this is not always going to be the case. Now, fortunately, when you are working as an engineer, especially in markets with skill shortages, then you are relatively, we can say, in a safe space when it comes to job security. However, there are many other deciding factors and considerable threats to your financial stability that could come up later on. And this is why the best thing is to learn how to manage your finances from a very early stage in your career. And I'm talking about the first month you get paid as an engineer. Now, if you haven't managed to do this when you first started, then the next best time is now. There's no excuse. You should start getting your financial education and learn about how to set financial goals for yourself. For example, how does your life look like in a few years' time, and how are you going to prepare for that? What do you need in place in order to ensure that your lifestyle continues and improves? These are all aspects that you need to think about, and you need to learn how to think about. You have to learn how to budget. So what money can you spend and how do you spend it? I'm not suggesting that anybody should be telling you how to or not how to spend your money, but I'm telling you from experience that saving and budgeting are things that will definitely, you will benefit from directly and indirectly more than a lot of other factors in your career. Now, you'll be surprised to know the amount of engineers that I speak to who are not in that space and who haven't got that kind of education and planning from an early stage. But learning how to budget and how to purchase assets, how your money should work for you, and how it can deliver financial goals and how you can plan for these goals is crucial for you. So learning how to invest, how to save, what options or what different options have you got in pensions. You're not just saving for your retirement, you should also be thinking about saving for different goals in your life and different milestones as you get older. Having an emergency fund, for example, set up and having money in order to fund your lifestyle are things that would make a huge difference to you in your career. Now, everybody knows that they can make a direct difference to your life, but I want to tell you that financial stability can also help you achieve a better work-life balance, because then you're not as forced to make or rush into career decisions just out of the need for more money. With a better financial backing, you can afford to wait longer for better opportunities. And usually, This is when you're waiting to get better and better job opportunities. So I think, and I see a lot of people rushing into switching jobs or going into, let's say, relocation in order to improve their financial aspects. And this is where the problem is twofold. You know, we're talking about a person not in a good financial space, so feeling stressed, but also desperate to recover that financial position. And this is where I think good financial planning and good financial education and experience can relieve. Learning about and having good personal finances will mean less stress for you later in your career. And this leads to my next point. The second point is really, in my opinion, the most important. And I think it also underlines a lot of the conditions that we set for ourselves in our work, and that is mental health and well-being. Now, this is a big mistake I made in the beginning of my career. I didn't really pay attention to it. When I first started as an engineer, I was working almost every hour I was awake, and I felt that was the time I could just throw everything else out of the window and focus on working more, working many longer hours, setting up work, freelancing, setting up my own side work, if you like, in order to achieve more financial gains, but also to learn more and more. And I was always driven by that incentive. I wanted to always do more. I wanted to be involved more. I wanted to do more work and work harder than anybody because I wanted to be learning more and I wanted to gain experience. So I spent every hour, I would say, I was awake between 2008 and 2013 working very hard. And don't get me wrong, I enjoyed a lot of financial success during that period. However, I just crashed. And this is why I think learning about yourself and about your well-being is very, very important. You need to first start by learning about your stress triggers. You have to know what can take you in a negative direction and how to manage your stress. And the second thing that you have to learn about is knowing about your limits. So how much is too much for you? I always say a little bit of stress keeps me going and keeps me motivated and keeps me moving forward to an extent, but too much stress is never a good thing for anybody. And stress always comes at our expense. So you need to be aware of what level of stress and pressure you can handle at the different stages of your career and of your life, so that it's a continuous learning process and something that you need to keep up to date on, as well as learning how to relieve your pressure and how to get into that habit. So for me, it was, of course, professional help and medical help, but at the same time, it was also hobbies. Identifying things in my character and what interests me. And this is where I fell in love with art, and this is where I felt interested in learning new things all the time and trying different new things, especially things that involved working with my hands, especially writing, painting, and other similar activities that proved really important for me and for my well-being. And it was something that stays with me, and it's going to stay with me for the rest of my life. So learn about mental health and learn more about yourself. For example, one of the things I learned about myself at that time was that I don't like being isolated, which is why I always prefer to work with other people and not work on my own. Which leads us to our third point. The third thing that I want to be telling young engineers is, please don't ignore networking. You know that a lot of us engineers are actually introverted, and that's why we end up in engineering to begin with anyway. We prefer to be working with systems, working on fixing things, on building new things, and not necessarily doing something that involves talking to other people a lot of the time. And if that's you, then you could still work with doing little talking. I'm not suggesting that you put yourself out there every day, although networking and proper networking requires a level of that. Establish your network, so get to know people that you could learn from, people who could advise you. And I talk about how to get career advice in other videos, but my point here is that you need to be always aware of what your network is and what your network can bring and how you can expand and extend your network in an effective and meaningful way. When I say effective, I mean that in a way that gets you opportunities to learn, opportunities to grow, and opportunities to be in better roles. And a meaningful connection is a win-win. It's a two-way conversation. You're not only just purely getting benefit from it, but you're also giving some benefit. And you have to find out what you could give in that conversation. So even if you're just starting out, it could be that the insight of the young workforce that you bring, or it could be that you've got fresh ideas, or it could be that you get exposure to the digital world that others that are ahead of you in their careers don't. So don't underestimate what you could bring to the table. You could provide meaningful and helpful feedback. That could be your input to begin with. So networking is about connecting with others in your industry and perhaps in a related circle where you could then exchange mainly ideas, but also learn about the different opportunities that could be considerable to you. You could network by connecting with people in your industry and within your company itself. You could network in institutes in different places in your industry. In your market, you could network with recruiters. So, you could learn a lot about salary levels and remuneration levels and job openings out there in the market that could be of use to you at some point. And you can also easily network when you approach people nicely, professionally, and you respect their time, but you're also aware of the limits. You're aware of the cultural nuances to an extent. You kind of prepare a pitch and a question. I would say in 15 to 20 seconds, you could talk about yourself and then start by, you could start by saying, hi, introduce yourself. For example, my name is Muhammad. I work as an engineer and, really pleased to meet you. And then you could start by asking a question, could you tell me more about yourself? Or how did you find that keynote? Or, how did you find today? Or you could ask direct questions like, if people don't mind, what made the difference in your career, etc. I don't think the right people would mind. And I believe there is enough good in this world that people would be more than happy to offer help and advice to you. And you could always ask, would you be able to help me out with the research I'm working on? Or how do you think the market is developing? How do you think our industry is faring? So all these different questions are always networking, opening opportunities. So you can also research the relevant networking techniques that could be used. There's plenty of training out there. Now, the network you could tap into would be, to begin with, within your company and within your place of work and perhaps your neighborhood, in your industry, in the wider market. So try to get out there and meet people face to face, but there's also plenty of online and virtual networking opportunities, such as on LinkedIn or other online professional events. In order to develop these three areas, I strongly recommend that you sign up to one of these quick personal financial trainings and don't spend a long time, but take action, take a small action and start with investing maybe £100 today. And if you could go on and invest £100 every month, after a few decades, this will compound to a good sum. And, a few decades just go by really quickly in an engineering career. You also need to take mental health courses and recognize what different triggers there are and the risks. And more importantly, discovering more about yourself. Always try to do something to find out more about what you enjoy more, how to relieve your stress, travel somewhere, talk to somebody new, write something, create something new, and get involved in things that would probably not have felt comfortable to do before. So try new things all the time. I personally found that volunteering, for example, and giving back to the community is a very satisfying way and good way of stress relief for me. So let me know in the comments what you enjoy in your spare time. And another action that you could take is reach out to a mentor in your space, asking them for opportunities to network. You can start with a question on how you can grow your network or how you could benefit from that network as an engineer, which is going to be the subject of my next video. So give it a watch if you like. See you soon.